Good evening. We'd like to call the Carroll County Board of Commissioners special call meeting for August 2nd, 6 p.m., 2018 to order. We'll call on Susan Mabry for roll call.
Chairman Marty Smith.
Here.
Vice Chair Vicki Anderson.
Here.
Commissioner Montrell McClendon.
Here.
Commissioner Tommy Lee.
Here.
Commissioner Michelle Morgan.
Here.
Commissioner Lee Powers.
Here.
Commissioner George Chambers.
Here.
Thank you.
Thank you, Susan. Items 3 and 4, we're going to call on District 1 Commissioner Montrell McClendon for the invocation, followed by the Pledge of Allegiance by Commissioner Morgan.
Father, we just thank you for this opportunity to come together to, again, take care of our great county. Father, we pray for your wisdom and your knowledge in every decision that we make, that we do our best to support our citizens in Carroll County. Father, we just ask you to lead and guide every decision that we make here. And I pray that you allow us as a county to be on one accord as we do what's best to make our county one of the best places to live in the United States. And Father, we give you honor and give you praise in Jesus' name. Amen.
Amen. Amen.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Commissioners. This time we'll move to item number 5, approval of tonight's agenda.
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to make a motion to approve the agenda with adding, adding 8.5, the one-time gift to the regional library system.
All righty, we'll look for a motion. We have a motion. Now we'll look for a second.
Second.
Motion and second. Any discussion? Seeing none. All those in favor? All those opposed? Thank you. For the minutes, that'll be listed under the financial session as item 8.5. Item 6.1, special call commission meeting from July 10th. We'll look for a motion from the board approval of the minutes.
So moved. Second.
Motion second. Any discussion?
No.
Seeing none. All those in favor? All those opposed? At this time, we're to the public comments. There was a sign-up sheet in the back. We'll call these out in order. If you will please come forward to the podium, give your name and your resident address, and we'll keep all comments to 3 minutes. And if we've got somebody here tonight that we can address the issue to, the board will not make comments back, but if we can address or assign you somebody, if not, we'll take it to the office tomorrow, and we'll make sure that somebody contacts you with your comments if so needed. First is Mr. Bill Burris.
Good afternoon.
Can you
I'm
turn
not
your
sure. I'm Bill Burris. I live at 450 Black Dirt Road in Whitesburg. I'm not sure if I'm going to repeat myself, but I was feeling lonely and I wanted to come down here and see everybody. Last week, some of us from the Friends of Whitesburg Library addressed the board of the West Georgia Regional Library System, and I described the current funding formula that they have adopted as one in which the rural population of Carroll County is totally disregarded and is therefore unfair, since 56% of the county's population is rural. My impression is that indeed the board recognizes our disapproval of that formula, but I don't quite feel that they understand the formula. I'm hopeful that they will. Some of the members of the Friends have been discussing questions like, what is a rural library? I think that this particular question has relevance to this Board of Commissioners. Carroll County has as many as 4 rural libraries, and that is why, to my mind, an important consideration is to be made about this question. Our working definition of a rural library is a library where most of its clients live outside the city, whereas an urban library has most of its clients inside the city's limits. And if you use this point of view, you can see how the system's funding formula is so unfair, not only to Whitesburg, but in due time, it will put each of the county's rural libraries in crisis because it never recognizes the existence of our rural population, let alone that these population numbers should be appropriately assigned. So let me put it this way. For those commissioners who have significant rural population in your district, if you applied this formula for other workings of the county, you'd be shoveling money away, just giving it away, because nobody in this formula who lives in a rural area is considered. So, we have come to an alternative formula through independent means, through several people, including the county's Director of Finances, who has come up with an identical formula, and I urge you to consider this formula from now on. As a matter of fact, my 3 minutes are up, and I thank you very much.
Mr. Burris, thank you very much. Next is Rhonda Rao.
Hi, I'm Rhonda Rao, 229 Little New York Road, Carrollton, Georgia, 30116. Although my address says Carrollton, I'm a member of the Whitesburg community, and I want to thank all of you for coming out and supporting us and protecting our library. And as Michelle and I were discussing in between the working session and the commissioners meeting here, I don't think we've considered the fact that the Whitesburg Library is an ADA compliant library as of today. If it were to close and we were forced to use Carrollton Library, that compliance is not there. You can't get a wheelchair up the sidewalk without assistance. There is no handicap accessible bathroom, although they pretend that there is one. A wheelchair is not able to get in and out. And that's a major concern of mine in keeping the Whitesburg Library open. I want it to be there for education and for the accessibility of the people that need it. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Rowell. Next is Dennis Smith.
Good evening, guys. My name's Dennis Smith. I live at 152 Mink Hollow Drive, Carrollton. I'm here to address the board about the state of the fire department. They've lost 14 people in the last 12 days. They're losing a lot of experience. The pay, after seeing this pay schedule, I don't know. I know there's not much we can do in this budget cycle. I would like to be on a board to try to move the fire department forward. I think that a lot of the rural areas are underserved by the fire department. We have a station out on Tice Carrollton Road, doesn't have a man in it. We got a 35-foot extension ladder in the city of Villarica protecting a hospital, doctor's office, and 3-story apartment building. The effective reach of a 28 or a 35-foot extension ladder is 28 feet. I'm begging the board to look into this and see if we can get some better numbers in these fire stations. Starting pay for firemen, $8.39 an hour. You're asking these guys put their lives out there. You're asking these guys to separate themselves from their families. I'm sorry, get a little emotional about it, but the reason I spent 21 years, city of Atlanta. I also served in Carroll County 8 years as a volunteer. This is where I got my start. As far as I know right now, The county has less than 10 volunteers that are active. I don't know what we can do about that, but the county's too large to be relying on volunteer help. There's not a civic duty like there was with a lot of these people coming up. We need to look at this. I'm concerned. I think there's some things that the county could do that wouldn't cost any more money or hire any more people to get some coverage in these areas. There's no sense in having a big, nice station on Tyus Carrollton Road with no manpower when we can move one truck in there and have coverage 24/7. Also, be able to respond it back to Bowden, Lowell, Clem, Whitesburg, Sand Hill, Mount Zion. And it's just moving one truck. You already got the personnel, you already got the truck. And also get it closer to Villa Rica. If something goes bad in Villa Rica, you got to respond to a ladder truck from the city of Carrollton or Douglas County. We're protecting a big metropolis up there with a lot of business. I know my 3 minutes is up. Thank you for your time, and I appreciate it.
Dennis, thank you. And I've agreed, Dennis had called earlier in the week just for the board to, he wants to sit down with some of the staff I have since he is local now here and express his concerns, and I will line that up. So I assured you that. Dennis, thank you. Next is Don Etheridge.
My name is Don Etheridge. I live at 128 Old Gold Mine Road, Villa Rica. Been a resident about 46 years full-time here in the county. Commend you all for what you've done, keeping us out of the red. You've done a good job, all of you. I want to speak about the plan. It is voluminous, to say the least. I acquired my copy this afternoon very graciously by your help, and I appreciate it, but I have not had a chance to read all of it. We're concerned about some of the unintended consequences that might be in this plan. We'd like you to consider publishing the entire plan with the color maps in the legal organ of the county. We'd like you to consider a delay period, maybe 60 days, before you take any final action on it, to give people a chance to look at it. We don't think the time that's been allowed so far has been sufficient. We have some serious concerns about the planned commercial growth along Highway 61 and its impact on small houses and trailers, and could result in some homelessness. We don't like the land rights or the ownership or the land rights transfers that could be another unintended consequence of this right here. Up in Virginia, the community of Colonial Heights, mega developers who'd come in and just literally use the governments to take over the land there. And it is a terrible situation. I was one of a half dozen people that in this courthouse in Harry Duncan's office persuaded him to adopt zoning for Carroll County many, many years ago when dinosaurs roamed the earth. And we never intended for anything except for the protection of rural and agricultural land, residential land, property rights. It was never intended for business, agribusiness, or anything else. It was to protect the property owners here. One more time, we commend you for what you've done. A lot of hard work has gone into this, but there are some things that seriously need to be considered about the land acquisition. It should not be a quasi-government or governmental thing to acquire rights for the greater good. It's very fashionable these days, but it's not what we need here in Carroll County. God bless you. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Etheridge. That was all the public comments. We'll move into the financial session. Item number 8.1, we'll call on Lehman Stevens, our finance director, for a financial recap for June 2018.
All right, thank you, Chairman. You'll notice I have a note in your packet that we did not do the statement of revenue and expenditures and changes in fund balance.
Lehman, you can't hear you.
Just turn the volume up. There you go.
All right. You know, this is our year end, and we are still working to record all the receivables and payables and making other year-end adjustments like the insurance adjustment that we need to adjust the liability to and the workers' comp, and those will not come in until sometime in August. I do project, though, that we're still going to finish the year with revenues exceeding expenditures by about 1.2 million.
So can hear you.
And we have presented the cash balance schedule. The general fund cash at the end of June was $11,774,000, and that compares to $10,349,000. So for the year, the cash increased $1.4 million. And again, next month, I will give you the June statement.
Fine. Any questions for Lehman?
You might note that we did move some of the operating money to a money market. We worked with the bank and to get a higher interest rate. Our interest rate had been really low. And by moving to the money market, they're paying us 1.75 now. And so for just the month of July on that money, we earned $10,000 on the money market account. So that's going to help during the year.
Seeing no questions, we'll move to item 8.2. We'll call on County Attorney Stacy Blackman for the resolution for T-Splosh call for the election.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, Commissioners. As discussed in the work session, this is the resolution to authorize the imposition of the 1% T-Splosh, and subject to the approval of the voters on November 6th, it also authorizes the calling of the election to take all actions necessary to do that.
Look for a motion from the board.
Make the motion.
Second.
Motion is second. Now any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor? All those opposed? Thank you.
Thank you.
Item 8.3 is Agriculture Conservation Easement Program. It will be presented by Brian Kent, County Engineer.
Chairman, Commissioners, this year we have 3 applications before you. You'll see how they've been ranked and the number of acreage. So we're looking at about 347 acres. The value of all these easements will be at $1.3 some odd million, $1,356,029.50. The federal share for that contribution will be $678,014.75. The county will have invested in that through Splosh $339,007.38 and to manage these easements. So again, these are preliminary values. How these are worked out, they have a preliminary appraisal that is done. That gives us a range of where we're looking at time. Once we figure out, these applications will be submitted to the state and onto the federal government. And once we get back, then a closing appraisal is done, and that closing appraisal will set the market and set the value 60 days prior to closing. We'll work with the county attorney to do that. But right now, there won't be any. There's less than a 10%. But last time we didn't have any. We actually had some stay about the same and go down. But again, this is the value. These are the 3 applications that will be submitted. Any questions?
Look for a motion from the board.
Second.
Motion second. Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor? All those opposed? Thank you, Brian. We'll move to item 8.4, calling Gerald Pilgrim.
Seems like I was just here. Commissioners, again, this is the sheriff's roof, the 2 roof sections, one over the sheriff's administrative wing and one over his evidence room. We have this, we have the opportunity, it's $54,090 would be the repair cost. The warranty would come with a 5-year warranty from the contractor. However, for the additional $1,400, there would be a 20-year manufacturer's warranty. So if y'all are so inclined, I think that would be, there is money in the 2008 SPLOST to do that and the $1,400.
I make a motion to approve with the $1,400 out of the 2008 SPLOST.
Motion is second. Any discussion from the board? Seeing none, all those in favor? All those opposed?
And the sheriff will be able to take his umbrella down now.
Thank you. Now the inserted item, item number 8.5 under the financial session, we'll call on Stacy Blackman, Michelle Morgan, either to present.
Okay, can I just go ahead and do the motion?
Yeah,
Okay.
absolutely.
I make a motion to give a one-time gift of $41,000 of SPLOST gifts to the West Georgia Regional Library on the MOU that was given to y'all during the work session.
Second.
We have a motion and a second for item 8.5. Now, any discussion from the board? Seeing none, all those in favor? All those opposed? Thank you. Now we'll move in the business session, item 9. 9.1, resolution regarding opioid crisis. We'll call on Stacy Blackman, County Attorney. And Stacy, I guess you can go over 9.1 and then follow
Okay.
9.2.
That sounds good.
Okay.
We have the resolution recognizing that the opioid epidemic is a nationwide and county epidemic, and to authorize any legal action necessary against manufacturers, distributors, and others as necessary to the fullest extent under the law to pursue public nuisance claims based on this epidemic. And then the second agreement, the next item, is the agreement to retain the law firms to pursue that legal action that was discussed earlier.
I'll make a motion on 9.1, the resolution regarding the opioid crisis to approve moving forward with that resolution.
Second.
Motion and second. Any discussion? Seeing none from the board, all those in favor? All those opposed? Thank you.
I also will make a motion to approve the retention agreement for opioid litigation with the firm listed.
Second.
Motion and a second. Any discussion? Seeing none. All those in favor? All those opposed? Thank you, Stacy. This time, we'll move to item 9.3, Carroll County Comprehensive Plan Update. Call on Janet Hyde.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman and Commissioners. Tonight, we're asking you to sign a resolution to submit the comprehensive plan draft to Three Rivers Regional Commission, and then we will also submit it on to Department of Community Affairs for their approval. I do want to point out that during this submission time, the draft will still be available on the website for the public to review, and we will have an opportunity to make edits to it later when we do receive those comments back from Three Rivers and DCA.
I make a motion to approve.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Now, any discussion?
I wanted to, the gentleman that had questions regarding how long has the comment period been? I mean, he was talking about he didn't think the comment period had been very long.
Right.
I mean,
We had the first public meeting last fall.
Okay.
We've had 3 public hearings. The future land use map has been out on the website for a couple months. The text has been out for a couple of weeks.
Okay. Is the full comprehensive plan on the county's website?
It is on the website.
Okay.
And will public still be able to make that input or just changes?
Yes.
So they'll still have changes up until the fall?
Yes.
Okay.
And as we identify issues or whatever, we're able to modify.
Right. We can make changes up until the adoption date in October.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
Any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor? All those opposed? Thank you, Janet.
Thank you.
Next, we'll move into the zoning session. Item 10, we'll call on Janet Hyde as the county planner also to start with our zonings.
Yes, the first item that I have is a rezoning, item Z-18-07-01. This is a rezoning of a 3.65 acre tract from commercial to R1 residential in order to build a single-family residence. The applicant is Coldwater LLC. The parcel number is 0940141. It's located on Mashburn Road. No additional residences will be added as a result of this rezoning. One family will be added to the school district if the rezoning is approved. The future land use for this property is commercial. However, the character of the surrounding area is rural and residential. Staff is recommending approval of this. The Planning Commission also recommended approval, and the applicant is present.
Okay, policies and procedures for governing of the conduct of the zoning hearings tonight. The applicant or anyone speaking in favor of the application request shall be allowed a total of 10 minutes to present their request. Anyone opposed to the request shall also have the same amount of time, 10 minutes. Anyone speaking for or against the application shall be allowed a total of 5 minutes to speak in rebuttal. We'll start with the first applicant.
My name is Jack Witcher. I'm an attorney from Bremen, Georgia. Practice at 601 Pacific Avenue in that city. During the course of my limited career,
Mr.
I have been a city attorney.
I think this is the Mr. Denny's application.
You'll be
Mr.
item
Rock's.
10.2. We're on 10.1. That'll be the next item. Yes. Not far. So the applicant for 10.1.
Mr. Denny.
We did, because we just talked about a single-family residence.
Okay, my name is John Denny. I live at 2345 Hayes Mill Road in Carrollton, 30117. This property is on Mashburn Road. It's immediately across from, I think it's 272. Gary Mashburn lives there. It's currently zoned commercial, and we would never want to put a commercial right across from one of the neighbors' houses anyway. So we're asking that it be zoned for residential R1, I think is the zoning for a 3 acre minimum. It's about 3.
Excuse me, I'm sorry to interrupt. I think we went out of order in the agenda items. I just realized that. Can we, just so that we're all on the same page?
They're both Mashburn Road, but they're listed on the internet as one, and then the printed is opposite. So
right.
What's been printed is conditional use, Mashburn Road, consideration of owner applicant Gregory McDonald, Healthy Properties, correct?
No, that's not the one we're on.
No?
That's
We're on.
10.1.
That is 10.1, and that's what order she's saying we need to go in.
Right.
If you look on your computer, Vicki, what's been printed is 10.1, and it'll reversed on our printed copy here.
So I thought, I'm okay over
Yeah,
here.
yeah, I am too.
Okay, so
So-
we just want to make clear that
Yeah.
we're all in agreement
This is
on the
what
agenda
counts.
item.
Single family.
So we're on 10.2 right now.
We are on 10.2 on the printed copy
And the computer.
and the computer here.
This is a printed copy, and it says the rezoning is 10.1.
Yeah,
10.1.
this, mine's 10.1.
All right.
That's the one she
Mine are
read.
reversed
She
here.
read the parcel number
Yeah.
0141, so that's what she read.
If you don't mind, maybe we can start over and Ms. Hyde can read an agenda item so we all know which one it is. Okay. And if that's okay. And so, Mr. Chairman, my 10.1 printed agenda item has
Your 10.1.
the Coldwater one. Is that what you have, Ms. Hyde?
My 10.1 says Coldwater as well.
Okay, so if everyone,
They're false.
And that's the one he's doing.
correct, but why don't we start over just to make sure?
Just to verify we're on the same page, we'll
And
start.
for the
We haven't gotten
record.
far into it. Janet, announce please what item we're going over, so everybody be clear.
Yes, this is item 10.1 on my agenda.
Okay?
It's the rezoning for Mashburn Road. The applicant is Coldwater LLC. The application number is Z-18-07-01. They're asking for rezoning from commercial to R1 for the purpose of constructing a single-family residence. The parcel number is 0940141.
Okay.
And the applicant is present, Mr.
Thank you.
Denny.
Now we'll move
This one
forward.
is John D. So-
Yes.
So this,
You're next.
this one is the one we're going to do.
Yes, sir.
Okay. Okay, do I have to start over? I don't remember what I said, but.
Start from scratch. You're
Okay.
good.
I'm John Denny. I live at 2345 Hayes Mill Road in Carrollton, Georgia. My wife and I have owned Coldwater, and we've owned this property since the early 90s. It was zoned sometime back in the 90s. I think our request for zoning was 300 feet back from Highway 27. Somehow the whole property got rezoned to commercial somewhere along the way. And what we're asking for is the very northwest portion of this property. There's a 3.75 acre tract that is right in front of Gary Mashburn's house. I think he's at 272, I believe, Mashburn Road. We want to zone it to residential for my son Seth to build one house there, and we would not want to be using it for commercial right there because of the neighbors in the neighborhood. So that's our request. I think that's all I've got to say about it, unless there's any questions or address any concerns.
There's still time under the 10 minutes if anybody else wants to speak.
Okay.
There's a proponent for it. If not, that's okay.
There's a number of the neighbors here because of the other one. I'd just like to ask, be sure there's none of the neighbors opposed to this, as far as I know.
We'll get opposition. We're looking for anybody in favor of it under the 10.
Okay.
If not, we will close out the 10 minutes for those in favor, and now we'll open the floor. 10 minutes for anyone here in opposition of application Z-180701, Coldwater. Anyone here in opposition? Seeing none, we'll close out the 10 minutes. Therefore, there's probably not a rebuttal. Mr. Denny, if you want to speak in the 5 minutes pro, if not, we'll look for a motion from the board.
I make a motion that we approve.
Second. We have a motion and a second. Now any discussion from the board? Seeing none, all those in favor? All those opposed? Thank you.
Okay, the next item that I have is item 10.2 on my agenda, conditional use for Mashburn Road. The owner applicant is Gregory McDonald, Hesley Properties, and Ricky Brock. The application is C-18-06-01. It's a conditional use request for mini warehouses. The property consists of 1.54 acres. It's tax map number 094-0218. Again, the applicant is asking to construct mini warehouses. The property is zoned commercial, and a conditional use is required for storage units and commercial zoning. There's already a concrete pad on the property to facilitate any development. There are other commercial uses in the area. The property is within the Highway 27 corridor, and this does require adherence to the corridor development plan as a result of this development. Staff has recommended approval of this, and Planning Commission also recommended approval. And again, the applicant's attorney is present.
Thank you. Mr. Witcher? And I do say we apologize for the mix-up there.
I'll try it again. My name's Jack Witcher. I'm an attorney from Bremen, Georgia. I practice at 601 Pacific Avenue, and I've been doing this at least a day or two. I've been a county attorney, a city attorney. I've attended zoning meetings and various things during the course of that time, both as an applicant and as an attorney for people. I was asked by Mr. Brock and Mrs. North to assure you that if the zoning is approved, that they'll comply with the requirements of the corridor. The reason I say that is that I've done zoning applications before, found out that even though I did the zoning application change, that I couldn't comply with the requirements of the building code, the setback requirements, all those other things that go into a decision as to whether or not you can actually put a piece of property to a specific use. Done the application, found out I couldn't do it. And the nice thing about your situation is, as I understand it, you've got a county attorney who's excellent, by the way. I wish I was as smart as she was, but that's another story. That the only thing you actually get to concern yourself with, as I understand it, is whether or not to rezone the property. Now, whether or not it complies with the building code, whether or not it can actually be built, whether or not you can meet the setback requirements, all those other things fall within a jurisdiction of another body to make those decisions for you. The application in this case is compliant. It is a use that should be authorized by the zoning ordinance. It's adjacent to a number of other buildings down there. It was used as a cycle track for testing go-karts, motorcycles, and things of that type for an existing business. It's a concrete pad out there that is back of a series of buildings, and you got a drain field on one side, you got a bunch of property to the other side. There is nothing that's going to occur with the establishment of many warehouses, if they can comply, that's going to change the composition of the neighborhood. People are always afraid of what they don't understand, don't know, or are afraid of. It's very easy to do that. I just did a rezoning in Bremen where I had to put in lighting, had to go back and put in buffers because the neighbors thought the lighting was too bright. The other part is we don't have to get into the fact about whether or not I can meet covenants in regard to the property. That's another tribunal, meaning that this board simply gets to decide whether or not I can rezone the property. And then Mrs. Hyde's organization, the other people, get to sit there and determine whether or not I can comply with the regulations, rules, and put the property up to meet the requirements of the county. I never get to covenants. I never get to anything else. I simply deciding that this is an appropriate use for the property. I met with my mind always forgets names, Mr. Denny, a number of neighbors. Unfortunately, I didn't resolve their concerns about lighting, traffic, all those other things that people are concerned with as a part of any change. Because as you'll find from your corridor change on your interstate or your 166, people are always concerned that something is going to change that affects their property. I was brought up, and this is a terrible thing because you'll know I'm a dinosaur when I say this, if you work for it, paid for it, and I didn't affect my neighbors adversely for it, I should be able to use it for whatever purpose that's legal to do it with. That's the way I was brought up. I still feel that way. I realize that we have a balancing act that we must utilize in doing these things. The application meets the requirements. The use is appropriate. We'd ask you to approve the application. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else here a proponent of this conditional use request under the first 10 minutes? Ask a second time. Anybody else want to speak under the 10 minutes as a proponent? Seeing none, we'll close out the 10 minutes. Oh, absolutely, Mr. Brock. How much time's still left? Okay.
My name's Ricky Brock. I live in Carrollton. I just want to say that, you know, we really want to put these things in. We want to do a nice job. And, you know, they're only going to be open from 6 till 10 with a gate and a code and all that. And they'll be fenced, and they'll be landscaped, and they'll be lighted. And, you know, that's just, I don't have anything else to say. It'll be a nice looking facility.
Okay.
Okay.
Thank you. Anyone else representing under the 10 minutes? Seeing none, we will close out those first 10 minutes. Now we'll open up to 10 minutes for opposition. You reset the time.
I'm Richard Todd. I reside at 92 Mashburn Road, Rookville, Georgia, 30170. I'm in opposition to these units being built. I feel that there will be additional crime, and so many times people are not able to meet their rent requirements, and then desperate people end up doing desperate things. And I think we're going to see an increase in crime and theft in that area because of this. Has the commission had a chance to look over this corridor development plan ordinance? Are you familiar with it? All of you familiar with it in its fullest extent? Okay. The first thing it says is to protect the health and safety and general welfare of the county and its residents, and to enhance the value and viability of the land surrounding the transportation corridor by preventing the development of land uses which conflict with the roadside and surrounding areas, to promote economic growth that enhances employment. I don't know how this is going to give us economic growth nor to enhance employment. It's to maintain property values and to protect the physical integrity of the county, and to provide for highway safety and to reduce the hazard from unnecessary points of ingress and egress and cluttered roadside development. It goes on, it details exactly what must be done as far as the planting of trees. It specifies all of these things. I don't know, Ricky may have provided to the commissioners and the planning people his exact plans for the planting of shrubberies and things of this nature. Ricky, do you plan to abide by all these that's set out in this document?
Mr. Todd, it's time for public comment, but it's not time for discourse, like exchange with the applicant.
Okay.
Thank you.
All right, thank you. Can I ask the commissioners the same thing, or are they going to enforce this?
I'm sorry, you can make public comments, but it's not a discourse.
Okay.
Thank
All
you.
right. Well, we would expect the commissioners and the people that would handle this to handle it according to the ordinance and to the fullest extent of this ordinance. It says you can have like 25% metal on the front and sides of the building, etc. The reason I'm a bit concerned, in today's paper, there were 25 units up for sale. There were 25 people that had not made their rent payments in 2 rental facilities here in the West Georgia area. That kind of tells me that these people are not the most responsible individuals. It also tells me that we might see an increase in crime. In the event that this conditional use application is approved, we request that the following restrictions be required. A 7-foot minimum chain link fence around the structures and traffic portions of the property, with Mashburn Road side and both sides perpendicular to Mashburn Road being black or green vinyl coated material. Secure gate that stays closed except during entry and exit and hours of operation from 7 to 8. That the units be used only for storage, no workshop usage or anything of this nature. Can't be repairing your cars, your motorcycles or whatever in there. That there be no direct entry or exit from Mashburn Road. Access should be through the common property to the existing 30-foot drive. There already exists a blanket easement through this area, and that is the Carroll access point, as Exhibit A shows. That there be no waiver of setback or buffer requirements, administrative or otherwise. If setback requirements were waived, the planting requested will likely be located in the power line right away and the risk of being cut or sprayed. That the planting would be required as specified in Exhibit B, and that these plans be maintained by the property owner. The planting would be outside the fence and or a mixture of and it lists all the things here, the giant green hollies, etc. Got a specification 6 feet high, 9-foot center, setback center along the Mashburn Road side and extending back 140 feet on each side, perpendicular to Mashburn Road. It gives the requirements for the crepe myrtles to be on 6 feet, then a 1 One Rising Sun, Red Bud planted near each of the two corners of Mashburn Road. It says the substitution could be made with approval of the Architecture Control Committee. We would ask that there be no high and really bright lights to disturb the countryside that we live in. And additionally, we ask that there would be no storage doors facing Mashburn Road in the event that this were to be approved. And I asked you, Commissioners, to please consider this and to ask yourself, how would you feel if these were being built within 200 yards of your own personal home? Because that's where I am. Thank you.
Thank you. Still under the original 10 minutes for opposition.
Meeting. Again, I'll state my name again. It's John Denny, 2345 Hayes Mill Road, Carrollton, Georgia. In support of the neighbors, I do ask that you seriously consider whether this really follows the purpose and intent of the corridor development plan, especially in conflicting with the surrounding areas and maintaining property values. And we feel like that we're not opposed to Ricky. He's a friend. I think if he weren't so well known and well liked, that if he were somebody from Atlanta, you'd probably have 20 or 30 people up here opposed to it. Anyway, we're just asking that if you do approve it, we would like for these to have these conditions. We did meet. I did not receive any landscape plan or anything like that from Ricky or his attorney, and that's the reason we had done this one. The only thing that's different on this one, pretty much from the one you saw at the last meeting that was submitted through the office, is that we requested our hours of operation that was not on the previous one, and that we've seen cases where the storage units were used like shops, and we would ask that that be prohibited from the standpoint of the county codes. If you approve it, that be a part of the requirements enforced by the code section. I appreciate your consideration.
Thank you. Time remaining. 3 minutes. Anyone in opposition?
I would like to just ask, several neighbors are here, I would just like to ask if the ones that came in opposition would stand or show hands.
Sorry, I was keeping up with the time myself. Seth Denny, Rupel, Georgia. I'm with the others. It's not something that I would prefer, but I also understand some things you can't help, but sometimes it's going to pass regardless. Being in law enforcement, I see an influx of crime at night, obviously, and if it were to pass, I'm in agreement with all the stipulations that they impose, because I don't have a clue to even act like I know what they all are. But the biggest thing that I see, having family out there and obviously about to build a home hopefully out there, and seeing that I have 4 kids, youngest is 1 and the oldest is 10, to have a set time, for example, of closure, it's like he was saying. For example, if it's open 24 hours, which I know he hasn't said he would, I think he said it's something about 10 or 8 or whatnot. Something's open in 24 hours and a law enforcement officer comes out there with them. They look suspicious. They can always say, I'm out here in my storage building, and it is no longer suspicious. However, right now, I believe everything closes at 6 p.m. at the latest, maybe 7. And if somebody comes out there at midnight and an officer gets out with them, now they're suspicious for sure, and it gives warrant to look at. So in my outlook, that's all I'm asking. If it were to pass, I would ask for some sort of closing time, 6, 7, somewhere it's still in the evening hours, but it's still where the kids can still get out and play without the extra traffic and such. Not that I say I super want to have it there, but once again, some things you can't stop from happening if, try to impose what we can if it is. Thank you.
Thank you. Time left? Still 1.5 minutes if there's any opposition.
Andy Lanier, 92 Rooks Road, Rookville, 30170. I just want to reiterate what the two have said as far as the stipulations, if it's built, if you approve it. And like John said, I know, Ricky to be a fine person, and some things you just can't, change is inevitable. But if we could keep the doors from facing Mashburn Road, protect that backside as much as we could, and also the light pollution. And I certainly don't have anything against churches, but when they built Rookville Road, the new one, it lights up the night. So anything else is just going to be more of it. And we just approved a residential change for one of the closest neighbors that's going to be there. If it's not Richard, it's going to be Seth. And Michael here just built it's a mainly rural residential area. My family's been there for 80 years.
Okay. Thank you. All right, we'll open up the 5 minutes for rebuttal.
Quickly, the lighting issue is easy to solve. I just solved one. They put baffles on the lights to control the exterior lighting affecting the neighborhoods. The city came out with light meters, said, Mr. Witcher, your light's too bright over here, put baffles on them, control the lighting to where it coincides with the area that you're trying to light. It is a resolvable problem whereby you're lighting the area that's required to be lighted. So as far as lighting goes, that's not a problem. The problem that you get into is that you're a zoning body, as I understand it, meaning we're going to do a zoning thing. The regulations of the businesses and whether or not they constitute a nuisance or anything else falls within the province of somebody else to regulate, because one, you don't have the ability to regulate it because you're not there. There are other people that you placed in charge of those programs to make sure that they're carried out correctly, and if they're not, there's recourse to make sure that those concerns are addressed and acted upon. So we again submit to you that it's an appropriate use. The area, if you'll look at a map on it, has got 1, 2, 3, at least 3 other buildings in the area, and this is the back of warehouses. So we're not changing the composition of the neighborhood. They've already looking at the backs of buildings out there when they go by. So it's already a little commercial zone there that's not going to be changed or altered by this if you can build it and it complies. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else for the rebuttal under proponents? Time left, 3 minutes. Any other comments under rebuttal? Seeing none, we'll close them out. We'll open up the 5 minutes for rebuttal for the opposition. If anybody would like to speak.
I would simply ask, one of the things that may not have been clearly addressed, I think there were some questions before, was regarding the access. I think it would be disrespectful to the community to have an entry from Mashburn Road. One of the items in your corridor purpose is to reduce the hazard from unnecessary points of ingress and egress. I haven't had any feedback or input from Ricky regarding where it's entered, but it's currently, the access is currently from a 30-foot wide private commercial drive off of Mashburn Road. If you'll look at the exhibit A or B1, I forgot which one, whichever shows the
A.
It shows where the suggested drive for access for this property, if you approve it, and that's currently the access. There is no, I mean, there right above that you'll see that it's written on the recorded plat, blanket easement, see covenants, that already has access there. I don't think it would be an undue cost. I'm not even sure it costs any more than coming off of Mashburn Road by the time you put the culvert and everything. And I think it would allow for screening much better on Mashburn Road, should you approve it. I'll be glad to address any questions.
We'll do that after the opposition.
Okay.
It's, okay, if you all have that, it's the second page and the very last page. If you look, he's talking about the visual of the other buildings. An aerial photograph does look like that, but if you come off Mashburn Road, you can see there's enough hill where you can really barely see the tops of the buildings from both angles, from where we're going to build and also from the upper side, from the entry where Rooks Road hits Mashburn Road. So we don't look at the back of buildings daily. We can see barely the top of that and probably the steeple of the church. That's all I was going to clarify that.
Okay. Time.
I was going to repeat what he said as far as what we can see, the buildings that we're looking at, that we don't see them because they're down the hill. Also, I think it's just so important that the main entrance for whatever is done there is not off of Mashburn, or at least not a new entrance. It'll change everything if that's the way it's done.
Still a little time left. 2 minutes if anybody wants to speak in opposition.
Richard Todd again, and they keep talking about the appearance. I'm not near as concerned about the appearance of these buildings as I am the crime factor. Again, I think people that rent these, a pretty large majority of them are irresponsible individuals. They're going to get behind on their rent. They're going to decide they need to do something to pay that rent rather than losing their household goods, and they're going to steal. We already have a crime problem there. The Georgia Deer Farm's been broken into about 5 or 6 times in its existence. The Broderick Taxidermy Service has had a lock cut off of his trailer recently. They stole a trailer from Road Baptist Church 3 months ago. So we already have a crime problem. And the more of this type of people we bring in, I think the greater crime problem we're going to have. So I'm not so much about the appearance as I am about the crime. Thank you.
1 minute for opposition under the rebuttal. We'll call a second. 1 minute under the rebuttal for opposition. Seeing none, we'll close out the rebuttal. We'll open it up for discussion if the board has any, or motion.
I think that it's not our job to enforce covenants. We already have that in place, and I don't feel like it's this board's job to do that. That's where I'm at.
One thing I'd like to say is the hours, talking about hours specific. Since I'm one of the deplorables that has one of these storage units, I had for too many years, but, well, I'm sorry I didn't.
Unwanted.
What? Unwantables or whatever. I think the hours of where I am right now is 6 a.m. to 9 p.m., which, seems to be pretty good hours, particularly if you're moving or something. And just to answer your question or the comment on auctions, many times people's stuff is there for whatever reason, and if they can't come or can't afford to get it out or whatever the situation, then they auction off after a while. So there's lots of reasons for that, but I'd have to say that not all the people that come to have storage places are criminals or anything. So anyway, that's I'm just responding a little bit. Anyway, hours, I would like, us to have an hour. So 6 a.m. to 9 p.m. is what I know of. It works well. But whatever. That's just one of the things that,
Is that a consideration?
Chairman, I would like to make a motion to approve, but I would like to put in the motion that I would like, Ricky, for you to close it down at 9 o'clock. And I would like for you to put up a camera system to 9 o'clock at night. And I do want that to be part of my motion.
Mr. Witcher or Rika, could y'all come just to address these, please, so they can hear you? We video. You can both come.
Like I said, I would like to make a motion for approval with two considerations. I would like for you to close at 9, and I would like for you to put a nice camera system that's covering the whole entire property, just in case there is some crime, because I'm real good friends with the Georgia Deer Farmer, Roger, and I know he's been broken into several times. I know he has not got a camera system. I think he's having one installed right now, but there is some crime that's happened down there in the past few years. I also helped Roger out a good little bit, and I'm in and out there. Mr. Todd, he understands that sometime I come in there at 2 or 3 or 4 o'clock in the morning when we come off, or some of my men do, delivering tractors for Roger. So I understand that there are some, and there's been many a times that the police saw us down there to address a police problem. They come up and they ask what we was doing there at that time of night. So I do understand that there has been some crime down there. If you would agree to put up a nice camera system and a fence around it with a black or green, and close it down at 9 o'clock and open up at 6 o'clock, I make a motion.
I get access off Mashburn Road to my property.
I mean, we can't deny you access to your property. So, I mean, that's your property and that's county road. So that's the only two stipulations that are in the motion.
Make a second it.
Let me add something else to that. Also, they made a comment about here in their ordinance here about workshops. I would prefer you have something in place, because I get that you don't want to turn that into a mechanic shop just because somebody's trying to make do. Does that make sense?
He is aware of that.
Okay.
And we will take the precautions to avoid that, because that's not what they're renting for.
Right.
And shouldn't be used for. And he has no objections to your 6 to 9 o'clock hours things, and the security system would be appropriate, but not only for anything else, but to protect the people who rent the stuff there and make sure their stuff's safe. So.
And did you talk about I know you talked about the baffles on the lights. Have you addressed that as well? It's in the corridor? Okay, all right.
In other words, your county inspector will come out and actually make sure that the lighting system is baffled appropriately, because Mr. Muse in the city of Bremen came out and said, you need to put a baffle here, a baffle there, because we want to make sure the neighbors are not bothered by the lights. So,
Stacy, can we put that in the motion about the hours?
I gotta back up.
Yes, we recommend that you give an opening time, since there's a closing time on those proposed hours of operation.
He did say 6 a.m.
6 to 9.
Right, so you want to amend your, yes.
He said 6.
6
He did say it, yeah, it was quiet.
That's okay.
So his motion is 6 a.m. to 9, plus camera system.
plus his requirement that we not rent.
Make sure there's no business garages set up.
And then he's talked about the fences.
And you adding fence?
Yeah,
The fence all falls under the corridor.
The fence does fall under the corridor,
that's not
so we don't
us.
have, but I just asked him what he please do,
Yeah.
and I wanted the
But
people to
not part of
understand
the
that.
motion.
Yes.
I
I just-
confirm, it confirmed, the fence is already in the corridor. I didn't think so.
It's in the ordinance. And
But we're,
Excuse me, Ms. Hott, can you speak into the microphone? I don't think they heard that.
I didn't think I read that a fence was in the corridor plan.
The fence is not in the corridor plan as was requested by the opposition.
Then I'll add that to my motion.
Okay.
For either green or black vinyl fence with an electric gate. Green or black vinyl fence with electric gate to be added to my motion for approval.
There's no problem with that either.
Okay.
Because we're talking about, I mean, the one I go to is access. You put in a code, it opens the gate, and it lets you in. But it protects you as a person going in.
Correct.
And it protects everybody else. So I think that would be good for your business too.
All right, the motion on the table, as stated, is 6 a.m. to 9 p.m., a camera system, making sure they're aware of no business, type maintenance or whatever within the use of the buildings.
That would be like a no shop, correct?
Yeah, no
Workshop.
maintenance shop or work type shop, and fence.
Second.
And that would be a fence that's green or black vinyl.
A vinyl fence.
Yeah, green or black vinyl fence.
4 things, right?
There's 4 items in the motion, correct?
Correct.
I'll ask the attorney to read them back one time, please.
Okay, we have a motion to approve with hours of operation restricted from 6 a.m. to 9 p.m. with a camera system for security purposes, a prohibition on like repair or workshops operating out of the units, and a requirement for a vinyl fence with the colors are green or black. And that's a perimeter fence.
Perimeter, yeah, and I second that.
All right, we have motion and a second now. Any discussion? And my question is, you're good with all the recommendations, Ricky?
Yes.
Okay. All right, any further discussion?
Okay, I have a question. So the covenants is, so Janet, I guess this is a question for you. Can we do anything with the covenants or is not the covenants? So even if they have them there, we cannot regulate them? Okay, unless we write them into the motion. Okay.
So the motion on the table, motion second, or for the 4 items added that was read by the county attorney, and he agrees. We have a motion and a second. Now, any further discussion on those items? Seeing none, all those in favor? All those opposed?
Make motion to adjourn?
Second.
Motion and second, any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor? All those opposed?
Thank you.